Revealed. What 12 unbelievable words from a janitor transformed a CEO's daughter's heart. Emily sat at her desk under the stark fluorescent lights, papers stacked high around her, a fortress of expectations she felt compelled to conquer. The city lights twinkled through the glass walls, an enticing reminder of freedom yet so far removed from her reality. She was a prisoner here, a 27-year-old corporate strategy analyst, the daughter of a CEO whose very name echoed through the halls of their Fortune 500 behemoth. As echoes of laughter and deals danced through the pristine office, a hollow ache gnawed at her chest, making it hard to breathe. What was all this for? Life stretched beyond the gilded cage but felt forever beyond her reach. Just one more project, she muttered, her fingers trembling against the keyboard as she typed out her proposal. It wouldn't matter. Nothing good ever seemed to last in a world where her father's ambitions overshadowed her own desires. Emily's mind raced. She had chased what she thought would bring her fulfillment, closing deals, impressing colleagues, but each success left a deeper void. The loneliness pressed in, heavy and oppressive, choking on twisted ties of familial loyalty. Was she merely a reflection of her father's success? Hours passed while she toiled away after everyone else had left, the office now silent except for the rhythmic swish of a broom. Henry, the janitor whose laughter punctuated the mundane workday, entered with a knowing grin. "Working hard or hardly working, Emily?" he teased, and she couldn't help but crack a smile. His kindness offered a stark contrast to the corporate veneer she routinely navigated. "You always know how to lighten the mood, Henry," she replied, but he saw through her mask. His eyes gleamed with a subtle depth that implied understanding. "You feeling okay?" he asked gently, leaning on his broom, his warm brown eyes studying her. "What does it matter?" She laughed awkwardly, masking the fray beneath her composure. But how could she explain the tangled mess of supposed success suffocating her? Instead, he drew closer, lowering his voice. "Your worth is far more than the title before your name." Those words resonated. She felt them dance between her ears, tinged with urgency. He had no idea of the weight she carried, the impossibly high bar set by her father's expectations. Was she meant to become the company's golden goose, forever living under those shadows? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As their late-night exchanges grew, she found in Henry a gentle confidant, a kind of mirror reflecting the truths she buried deep. His words, simple but poignant, felt like a push against the smothering edifice of her inherited success. With the facade she wore slowly crumbling, bursts of longing surged for authenticity. Yet, she wondered, was she choosing a path away from her father's relentless expectations or surrendering to a new vision of failure? Then came an unexpected promotion from her father. The echoes of her colleagues' applause filled the air, each clap a thunderous reminder of the gilded chain still binding her. What if this opportunity was merely a continuation of a path she so desperately wanted to abandon? Excitement mingling with dread slackened her resolve, pushing her deeper into this tumultuous conflict. What did success mean now if it was just another layer of the cage? As she faced her father in his corner office, the city lights dimming behind her, Emily felt the weight of her choices pressing down harder than ever. Would she dare to follow Henry's wisdom, or would she stay tethered to expectations, losing herself entirely? The stakes had never been higher as the room pulsed with anticipation, leaving only one piercing question lingering in the air: could she reclaim her narrative before it swallowed her whole? The conference room buzzed with energy as Emily took her seat at the table adorned with glossy reports and sleek laptops. The hum of conversation faded into a frantic din, but within her, a tempest brewed. All eyes turned to her as her father began the meeting, his commanding presence casting a long shadow. She could feel the weight of their expectations pressing against her chest. She had always associated value with achievement, yet today, she wrestled with a nebulous sense of dread. "Congratulations, Emily. This position is well-deserved," one of her colleagues chimed, oblivious to her internal conflict. Their affirmation felt like honey poured into the void, a sweetness she did not crave. She returned the gesture with a smile, even as skepticism bubbled beneath the surface. Did she truly belong here, or was she merely a placeholder for her father's legacy? "Let us jump right in," her father said, glancing at her with an approving nod. The agenda turned her way, and suddenly she was thrust into the spotlight. "Emily, why don't you present your thoughts on the new market strategy?" The laser focus on her felt suffocating, and as her heart raced, she gathered her notes and drew in a shaky breath. The proposal she had labored over suddenly felt inadequate. She began to speak, words spilling forth in a rehearsed manner, but a flicker of doubt turned her voice brittle. Emily glanced at the faces around the table. Expectation mingled with eagerness demanding brilliance while her own mind churned with apprehension. Halfway through, she paused, the room fell silent. It felt almost palpable, they too sensed something crucial hanging between her words. This may not be the best direction," she stumbled, her confession hanging in the air like a breath held. A moment passed, thick as fog. Her father's brows furrowed, and she swallowed the lump rising in her throat. Would they see her hesitation as weakness, or would they understand it as a moment of clarity? I think we should consider a more innovative approach, one that aligns with our core values instead of just focusing on numbers. Her candor hung like a damning declaration, and the room erupted into murmurs. Emily's heart hammered against her ribs, a mixture of exhilaration and fear doused in sweat. What had she just done? Had she countered the very fabric of her father's plan? Yet, in that moment, she rediscovered a strength she had long buried beneath layers of obligation, an inkling of her true self peeking out from behind the corporate masks she had worn for so long. Her father's gaze narrowed, assessing. "Interesting perspective, Emily. Let's discuss that further." The deliberation was quieter this time, skepticism mingled with intrigue spun through their exchanges. As discussions circled back to familiar routines and safety nets, Emily's pulse quickened. Each proposal, each consensus, felt like a step back into the dark cage she had aspired to escape. There was no more room for reflection, no more chance for exploration. The dread returned with full force as she realized her father's approval might come at the cost of her emerging identity. Later that evening, she found herself trapped in the office again, papers strewn across her desk, the sterile lights buzzed above, illuminating a chaos of thoughts and emotions. What did she need to do next? She replayed Henry's words in her mind, "Your worth is far more than the title before your name." For the first time, she considered a path unshackled from shadows. The dilemma before her became resoundingly clear. She would either conform to her father's framing or carve out her own identity, but that path wouldn't be easy. She would need to confront him, not just for herself, but for her vision of what success should embody. Standing in the stillness, emotions roiling within, Emily felt the first stirrings of resolve, each breath hinting at a burgeoning transformation. She could no longer be invisible. A reckoning awaited her, one filled with uncertainty yet laced with promise. Taking a deep breath, Emily stared toward the city lights. Flickering outside, illuminating the horizon ahead. What courage would she summon to face her father, to truly voice her desires? The walls of expectation were closing in as she drew nearer to an inevitable confrontation, where her narrative dared to emerge anew. The moment of truth was fast approaching, a choice that would redefine her life and legacy. Would she step forward into that uncertain light, risking everything to embrace her own voice? The night loomed heavy, casting deep shadows across Emily's workspace as she grappled with her emotions. Outside, the city pulsed with life, yet it felt like a world apart from the tempest inside her. She leaned back in her chair, allowing exhaustion to wash over her while simultaneously fueling a torrent of self-doubt. Every moment spent avoiding the confrontation with her father led to a gnawing anxiety that clawed at her mind. Could she articulate her truth? Would he dismiss it altogether as just another youthful rebellion against a legacy too grand to alter? Her thoughts drifted to the lives of those she had known while assisting her father on community projects. She witnessed real battles for recognition and respect, struggles much deeper than the polished veneer of corporate presentations. Janitors, custodians, and maintenance workers often invisible but integral to the fabric of the organization. They operated without accolades, yet they turned up each day, dedicated. That perspective painted her dilemma in new light. Perhaps her identity wasn't solely tied to titles but more to authenticity and purpose. Drawing inspiration from these overlooked souls, Emily felt a spark ignite within. She wasn't merely a product of her father's legacy. Perhaps her role could transcend the confines imposed by it. She could challenge the unyielding narrative that weighed heavily on her shoulders. But to articulate that vision meant she needed a plan and approach that wouldn't simply seek her father's validation but would assert her own worth. As dawn crept in, an idea took shape. Instead of demanding an immediate confrontation, why not present her vision first? She could gather evidence, mold a foundation, and then roll out her ideas incrementally. It would require patience and strategy, an approach vastly different from the impulsive surge that characterized her earlier demeanor. In the days that followed, Emily meticulously crafted her proposal. Late nights turned into early mornings, filled with vibrant thoughts and a fervor that invigorated her. She mapped out her revolutionary strategy, weaving in the perspectives she'd gained from watching those often overlooked. What if the company thrived not merely on profits but on valuing every employee's contribution? What if she led a paradigm shift that placed empathy at the forefront of leadership? The draft became her emotional outlet, a canvas where her thoughts transformed into actionable insights. Each recommendation reflected not just the numbers that drove profits but shaped something more: the human element of work. Her prose gained strength, the words unearthing a voice she didn't fully realize she possessed. The day she completed the proposal, there was no triumphant crescendo, only a sense of quiet poise. She knew her work was just the beginning. Revealing this to her father would be a critical test, a moment that could shatter her feelings of inadequacy or solidify her emerging identity. She arranged a meeting with him, intent on articulating her vision clearly and assertively. Emily stood nervously in front of her father's office door, rehearsing the points she had memorized. This was her moment, a confrontation built not just on familial ties but on the necessity of reconciliation between her aspirations and her reality. Inhale, exhale. As she knocked, the reality of executing her plan settled uncomfortably in her stomach. Could she maintain her composure amidst the gravity of their relationship? The door creaked open, revealing her father's expectant gaze, shadowed with years of experience and expectation. "Emily, come in," he said, gesturing for her to take a seat. She stepped across the threshold, feeling the tension tether her every movement. The moment had arrived. Would she be able to articulate the path to her own identity, or would fear twist her intentions into whispers? "Dad, there's something critical we need to discuss." Emily's heart raced as she settled into the chair opposite her father. The air itself felt heavy with anticipation, a sharp contrast to the cool calmness she had worked hard to cultivate in her proposal. She took a moment to collect her thoughts, gazing momentarily at the framed awards and accolades that adorned the walls, a visual testament to her father's accomplishments, each one a silent reminder of the legacy she sought to redefine. "Let us hear it then," he said, a hint of curiosity mixed with the usual authority in his voice. The confidence that had surged through her during the writing process seemed to waver. She shuffled her notes, fingers trembling slightly over the pages. "Dad, I've been thinking a lot about our company," she began, her voice steadying as she felt the weight of her resolve. "About how we can reshape it, how we can truly value every voice in our organization, not just those at the top." He raised an eyebrow, and a shadow of skepticism crossed his features. "Interesting perspective. But you know as well as I do that results drive decisions. The bottom line matters more than sentiment." "That's just it," she pressed on, emboldened by her conviction. "What if we prioritized empathy over traditional metrics? What if our success included understanding the contributions of everyone, from the executives to the custodians? The people you often ignore, Dad, they're the backbone of our operation. His expression tightened, a mixture of surprise and defensiveness washing over his features. Are you suggesting I've neglected them? No, she replied quickly, not wanting to alienate him further. But maybe we both have, in our pursuit of success. I studied the industry trends, and there's a shift happening. Companies that invest in their internal cultures and show genuine care for their employees outperform those that don't. Emily felt the air thin but took a deep breath, invoking the struggles she had seen firsthand. When I worked on community projects with you, I saw the dedication of those janitors and groundskeepers. They've got stories, they have ideas that could propel us forward. What if we engaged them, created forums for ideas to flow from every level? He leaned back, arms crossed defensively. And tell me, how would you propose we implement this radical shift? His tone danced between interest and condescension, with enthusiasm bubbling beneath her surface. She laid out her strategy: employee-led councils, regular feedback sessions, and transparency initiatives to elevate voices that typically remained muted. We could start with pilot programs, test them, gather data. I have the research to back this. Look at companies like Patagonia or Zappos. Their culture is their competitive edge. Emily's voice softened as she leaned in slightly, driven by an earnest need to connect. I want to ensure that our company means something. That it doesn't just thrive on profit margins but on building a family. I want to reshape our work culture into a model of collaboration, not hierarchy. Her father's frown deepened, a protective instinct triggering in response to what he saw as an attack on their legacy. You're suggesting a complete overhaul without understanding the implications. His words felt like a punch. Frustration swirled within her, but she kept her composure. I'm offering a vision for a better future. It's not just about emotion, it's about results, a sustainable path. If we keep doing things the same way, we risk becoming obsolete. A charged silence enveloped them as her father's gaze pierced through her, seeking clarity in her intentions. Emily's heart hammered. Was she breaking through, or was this a dead end? Have you thought about the repercussions of opposing me? The risks? His voice dropped, a dark counterpoint to her hopeful vision. She nodded, acknowledging the implications, yet countered with determination. Yes, but the real risk is not stepping up. My identity can't solely be about pleasing you. It has to be about leading with purpose. His eyes narrowed. She could sense he was weighing how much to trust the young woman. Before him, the daughter who might defy the very legacy he had built. Are you sure you're ready for this? He asked, the wariness undeniable. Emily opened her mouth to respond but saw a flicker of something in his eyes, something that told her this was merely the beginning of their confrontation. Yes, she finally said, her voice stronger than it felt. But more importantly, are you? The tension crackled in the air as she awaited his response. He remained silent, seemingly lost in thought. Just as she opened her mouth for another attempt, the door swung open, disrupting the heavy moment. A janitor stood at the threshold, clutching a broom in one hand and a determination that transcended either of their assumptions in the other. Emily's heart raced. This unexpected intrusion could shift everything. What revelations lay ahead, and would this encounter change not just her father's perspective, but perhaps her very approach to leadership itself? Emily blinked in surprise at the janitor framed in the doorway. Clad in a blue uniform, his presence grounded the tension swirling in the room. The moment was palpable. She could almost feel the weight of his authenticity contrasting starkly with the corporate armor she and her father had donned. I'm sorry to interrupt, he said, his voice steady but polite. I just wanted to drop off this report. He held out a clipboard, but Emily could see something more profound in his eyes, an unfiltered perspective born of lived experiences. Her father's brow furrowed as he shifted in his seat, visibly annoyed by the interruption but said nothing. Emily leaned forward, intrigued. Thank you for bringing this in. I appreciate your effort. He stepped inside, eyes darting between them before settling on Emily. Actually, I couldn't help but overhear part of your conversation about employee engagement. It got me thinking maybe I could share an idea. He hesitated but then forged on. I believe that if we really want to make the workplace better, we need to start listening to those at the bottom. People feel invisible sometimes. We all want to be seen. A ripple of recognition coursed through Emily. This man wasn't just talking about abstract principles, he was presenting a reality she had grasped instinctively. She nodded, encouraging him to continue. Why not have a roundtable where everyone gets to voice their thoughts, even if it's just once a month? We could have someone from the cleaning crew sit next to a manager. You'd be surprised what people can learn from each other, he proposed, his voice growing more animated. The janitor's suggestion left Emily buzzing with excitement. She could already visualize a platform where diverse perspectives could converge, breaking down barriers between titles and responsibilities. Yet, she also sensed her father's growing discomfort. That's a lovely idea, Emily responded, her heart racing. Imagine the innovative solutions we could unearth if everyone felt included. Fresh ideas often come from places we least expect. Her father's expression hardened, an unmistakable sign of his disbelief. We don't need to take advice from. He paused, clearly struggling to embrace the direction his daughter was pushing. Hold on, she interjected, feeling boldness swell. What you're saying is that we should dismiss this valuable input simply because it comes from a janitor. That's exactly the kind of thinking I want to challenge. Anyone can have an insight that might help us grow. Silence fell again, but this time it was charged with an unfamiliar energy. Her world had shifted. For so long, her father had been the only voice she fought through. Now here was proof that wisdom transcended hierarchy and title. The janitor observed her, a flicker of respect warming his features. I get it if you're unsure. It isn't easy to shift gears. But taking small steps might pave the way for something bigger. You've got the courage to go against the grain, and that's important in a place like this. As he turned to leave, Emily felt a surge of clarity washing over her. Perhaps she had been equipped all along, not solely by her education and upbringing but also through listening to the genuine stories of those often overlooked. A sense of purpose ignited within her. She would have to gather everyone's voice and not merely propose policy changes but enact them. She envisioned regular assemblies integrated into the company schedule, where employees felt empowered to share experiences without fear of judgment. Her father cleared his throat, reasserting his dominance in the room. Emily, we can't base decisions on emotions. Maybe we can, she ventured tentatively but firmly. What if emotions are what drive true innovation, Dad? What if we started to redefine our reality? He studied her intently, as if contemplating the degree to which this conversation would alter their dynamic. At that moment, she realized she was poised to open a door. One that she hadn't known existed until now. Are you ready for this change? Her father challenged, skepticism lacing his tone. Yes, she replied, determination intertwining with her pulse, renewed. The question is, can we face it together? The air hummed with possibility, but as she contemplated the path ahead, she saw it bifurcate into two stark choices, the route defined by her father's legacy or one where she forged a new trail. Just then, the janitor returned, likely sensing that the moment wasn't over, his gaze locked with hers, full of an unspoken understanding. Sometimes, he said, the hardest conversations can change everything. Emily's heart leapt into her throat. In that instant of connection, she was unsure whether it was her professional dilemma or the weight of family loyalty that felt more demanding. Would she seize the opportunity for change, or would she back down in the face of familial obligation? As the crossroads loomed nearer, she resolved to embrace the unfolding challenge ahead, whatever that might entail. Emily's mind raced as she contemplated the weight of her decisions. The janitor's words echoed in her head, the hardest conversations can change everything. With a determined heartbeat, she knew the time had come to take action beyond the confines of their office dialogue. The next morning, she arrived at work earlier than usual, the early sun filtering through the glass facade and casting long shadows on the polished floor. As she navigated through the mostly empty office, she felt the stirrings of a plan blossoming within her. Every step resonated with intention. She was ready to transform her vision into reality. She moved swiftly to her desk, where she opened her laptop and began drafting an email for all employees. It was time to propose the regular assembly she had envisioned, a format that would allow all voices to be heard. She typed steadily, carefully crafting her words to convey her resolve and excitement. Subject: invitation to voices in the workplace, share your insights. In the body of the email, she articulated the purpose clearly. I believe that each of you, regardless of your role or title, has valuable insights that can enhance our work environment and contribute to real innovation. I invite you to join me for a monthly forum where we can share thoughts, experiences, and ideas. As she pressed send, she felt a rush of exhilaration and vulnerability simultaneously. However, her excitement began to dissipate when doubts crept in, fueled by her father's predictable resistance. What if he dismissed her idea as trivial? What if his position within the company undermined her efforts? But the encouragement from the janitor resurfaced. Shifting gears was challenging, but it was necessary. She steeled herself, mentally preparing to face her father. Later that day, during their afternoon meeting, the atmosphere felt charged as her father sat at the other end of the long conference room table. Emily inhaled deeply, grounding herself before presenting her agenda item. "Dad, I would like to propose something," she began, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. "A monthly assembly where all employees can voice their thoughts. It's essential that we cultivate a culture of openness and dialogue. Everyone deserves to be heard." Her father leaned back in his chair, skepticism washing over his features. "Emily, we're a business. We don't have the luxury of wasting time on feel-good exercises. We need practical solutions." His dismissiveness struck a nerve, but instead of recoiling, she pressed forward. "What if the ideas shared there lead to practical solutions? We could tap into a wealth of insights that might escape our regular decision-making processes. It's an opportunity for growth." Emily's voice picked up momentum as she continued, fueled by a blend of passion and fear. "What if we redefine what is practical? We can't afford to overlook potential breakthroughs just because they come from unconventional sources." Her father's brow furrowed deeper. "This is not how we do things here. What's next? Listening sessions for every department?" "Maybe not every department," she replied, her breath hitching at the growing intensity of the confrontation, "but we can start with one. You once told me innovation stems from the unexpected." At that moment, she saw a flicker of contemplation in his eyes, and for a fleeting second, she thought she might pierce his resistance. But just as quickly, he shut down, reciting the mantra of tradition. The meeting concluded, leaving Emily's heart heavy with doubt. She couldn't shake the fear that the old guard was not ready for her vision. Her resolve wavered, caught between the desire for change and the shadow of her father's expectations. As she departed the conference room, a nagging voice in her head whispered, would she continue pushing against the current, or would she ease back into the comfort of compliance? Determined not to let the weight of familial obligation dictate her path, she knew she needed counsel. There was only one person who had ignited this fire within her. She glanced toward the janitor's closet, considering whether he would be willing to share his perspective again. Emily turned back, calculating her next move. She felt an acute awareness wash over her. The struggle for her true voice had just begun. The journey ahead would not be easy, but as she approached the closet, she embraced the tumult of potential change. With each step, she wondered, what other conversations awaited her, and how many more could seize her heart as profoundly as the janitor's had. Emily paused outside the janitor's closet, her heart thumping in her chest. The door was slightly ajar, and she could catch a glimpse of the man organizing his supplies. The past weeks had blurred together with late nights, meetings, and a pressure to conform. But his words lingered, the ones that had ignited a desire in her heart to shape not just the company, but herself. Cautiously, she pushed the door open, feeling a rush of fresh air infused with the scent of cleaning supplies. "Excuse me, do you have a moment?" The janitor turned, a soft smile spreading across his weathered face. "Of course, Emily. What's on your mind?" His unassuming presence felt like a lifeline, and for a moment, she faltered, unsure how to articulate her inner turmoil. Instead, she launched into the details of her proposed forum, feeling the excitement of her initial vision bubbling back to the surface. "I want to foster a culture of openness, but my father thinks it's impractical. How do I get him to see what I see?" He nodded, listening intently, his eyes reflecting a wisdom she hadn't anticipated. "Sometimes, the hardest part isn't the idea itself. It's getting others to see its value." "What do you mean?" she asked, leaning forward. "People are afraid of change, Emily. Your father sees tradition as stability. If you want him to grasp your idea, you'll need to frame it as something that preserves what is good while inviting in something new." His words struck her. Preserving stability. Redefining what was practical. Could she convince her father that the assembly could strengthen the company rather than undermine it? The thought sent her mind racing, weaving scenarios in which she presented not just her idea, but the compelling argument he had just offered. "Thank you," she breathed, a smile breaking through her earlier doubt. "This really helps." Emily left the closet invigorated by possibility. The revelation that the challenge lay in reframing her proposal invigorated her, but it also stirred apprehension. She returned to her desk and pulled up a Word document, determined to revise her presentation approach. Hours passed as she meticulously adjusted her talking points, ensuring she would emphasize how the assembly would align with their core values and long-term goals. She infused her outline with pieces that showcased stability, loyalty, and teamwork traits her father revered. By the end of the day, Emily felt an undeniable sense of accomplishment. Once again, she had shifted gears, but this time, the shift resonated deeper within her. She was no longer merely pushing an idea, she was becoming a conduit for transformation. The next morning arrived, and with it, the impending confrontation with her father. Emily entered the conference room armed with her statistics, her narrative, and a newfound understanding of framing arguments. The clock ticked ominously as she waited for the meeting to begin, her heart racing. When her father settled into his seat, she felt a familiar knot of nerves return, yet her confidence began to blossom. This would not be a fight, it was a conversation. "Dad, thank you for meeting with me again. I wanted to present a revised version of the employee assembly," she began, her voice steady. "I believe it could truly enhance our company culture while respecting the values we've built and maintaining operational efficiency." He raised an eyebrow, his acquiescence unspoken but palpable. "Go on." With each passing moment, she captured his attention through careful reasoning. As her voice filled the space, she could almost see the gears turning in his mind. Hope surged through her, yielding to the realization that this time she was more prepared. More engaged. When she finished, silence enveloped them. She held her breath, waiting for his response. Would he dismiss her again, or was something different happening this time? Finally, he leaned back in his chair, a slight crease appearing between his brows. "You've put a lot of thought into this." Emily felt a surge of anticipation, the air thrummed with tension. "Yes, and I truly believe in the potential here." The moment appeared ripe for a breakthrough, a pivotal moment that could redefine their relationship, but just then, a sharp knock interrupted, pulling their attention away. "Can we reschedule for a moment?" A voice called from the hallway. "There's been an urgent issue with the software updates." Emily's heart sank. Disruption, a force outside her control, yet again. Would this break the fragile thread she had woven, or would it provide a new opening? She exchanged a glance with her father, whose expression became enigmatic. He nodded slowly, and she felt a shifted door slightly ajar. As the meeting broke, she remained at the table, replaying words in her mind. She had taken a step forward, but uncertainty loomed. Would she continue to face this bulk from him? The battle was far from over, but she had set something in motion. Tomorrow promised a new challenge, and she knew her voice would be needed once more. How would she navigate the oncoming disruption, while holding on to her vision? The path ahead beckoned with the unknown, and she felt an urgent tug toward resolution. Emily sat alone in the conference room long after her father left, the echoes of their unresolved conversation lingering in the air like a thick fog. She had felt a flicker of hope when she saw a glimmer of consideration in his eyes, but their moment was interrupted before it could materialize into something more significant. Now, a whirlwind of doubt entered her thoughts. What if she wasn't equipped to fight for the vision she held so dearly? Dictated by impatience, she reflected on the janitor's insights once more. The notion of reframing her proposal had shifted something within her, and she realized it was not merely about the assembly or her father's perception of change, it was about her own commitment to that change. For a moment, she considered the possibility that this assembly might not just engage employees, it could also re-engage her father in some way. Determined to prove her belief that even transformative ideas could stem from stability, Emily sprang from her chair and headed to her office. She needed to think of a new strategy, one that could articulate her vision in a way that resonated deeply with her father's values. She opened her laptop, ready to pour all of her thoughts onto the screen, creating a manifesto of sorts. Reinforcing our values while embracing innovation, she murmured to herself, tapping her pen against the desk. That phrase held promise. Her fingers danced across the keyboard, drafting bullet points that connected her ideas back to the company's successes. Stability was key, but she saw now that preservation didn't mean stagnation. She could showcase how the assembly could evoke loyalty and engagement, catering to their collective interests. That as the hours slipped by, crafting this narrative re-energized her. The task became more than just a proposal, it was a personal mission. She pored over notes, finding ways to incorporate stories of team successes, highlighting how collaboration had sparked innovation before and could achieve it again. With every keystroke, the fear that had once shackled her at the thought of confrontation loosened its hold, transforming into motivating resolve. When she finally stepped away from the screen, the setting sun painted her office in warm hues. Emily felt lighter, as if she leapt forward, pushing against her insecurities and boundaries. It was clear, she wasn't just advocating for the assembly, she was stepping into her own narrative as a leader. Still, she knew it was just a beginning. The next day would bring another chance to speak with her father, to embrace the core of their familial and professional relationship. Would he grasp her passion? Would he understand the potential she saw? These questions lingered, reshaped now by her newfound clarity. But lurking just beneath the surface was the question that threatened to undermine her confidence. What if the conversation turned confrontational again? What if instead of embracing her vision, he saw only a challenge to his authority? Emily brushed a hand through her hair, a gesture of both frustration and determination. This was not merely an uphill battle against her father but also a quest to establish herself as a voice worthy of being heard within the organization. The following morning dawned, heavy with anticipation. She gathered her materials, running through her thoughts in her mind, readying herself to engage her father in dialogue. She was no longer simply requesting his approval, she was inviting him to be part of a future that aligned with their shared legacy. With each ringing step toward the conference room, Emily felt her nervousness transforming into clarity. The moment felt imminent, the moment to confront not only her father, but also her own fears. As she approached the door, she hesitated briefly, breathing in deeply, feeling the weight of everything at stake. Would her voice make a difference? Would he see her as more than just his daughter? Just as she was about to turn the handle, a voice echoed down the hallway, his office manager calling urgently for him. Anxiety flared momentarily. Here it came again, the disruption, the uncertainty. Another chance would slip away, and her time was running thin. How much longer could she keep postponing this critical conversation? The answer lay ahead, but now she needed to summon the courage to face the unknown. Would she emerge victorious, or would old patterns lock her resolve? With a steely determination, she grasped the door handle tighter, feeling empowered to rise to the challenge, prepared to confront all the looming uncertainties. This was a decisive moment, one that could either unlock a new chapter or send her retreating into familiar shadows. Emily pushed the door open, ready to step into the fray. What awaited her on the other side? The conference room felt vast and stark, the polished table reflecting the fluorescent lights above like glassy waters. Emily entered, her heart pounding with adrenaline and anticipation. The table sat empty, save for her proposal neatly arranged before the inevitable showdown with her father. She inhaled deeply, the scent of fresh paper mingling with the sterile office aroma, grounding her in the moment. With a sharp resolve, she began setting out the materials she meticulously prepared the night before. This was not just a strategic layout, it was a declaration of her newfound purpose. If she was to make her case convincingly, she had to embody the innovation she sought to inspire. Moments later, the door creaked open, and her father entered. He carried an air of authority, the weight of his years in leadership evident in his posture. The air thickened with unspoken tension as their eyes locked. His expression remained unreadable, and for a fleeting second, doubt crept back in. Would he dismiss her again or lend her the ear she desperately sought? "Emily," he began, his tone neutral but firm. "I'm glad we could meet again." "Me too, Dad," she replied, forcing a steadiness into her voice. This wasn't about the past or the many arguments that had formed a wall between them, it was about the future, one that she envisioned as collaborative. "I've put together some ideas for the upcoming assembly." As she spoke passionately about her vision of merging innovation with their established values, she noticed his brows furrowing. It was a familiar expression, one she had seen often when he felt threatened or defensive. Still, she pressed on, detailing the stories of team initiatives that had yielded impressive results. "This assembly has the potential to inspire engagement, raise morale, and reinforce the principles that guide our legacy," she declared, heart pounding as she felt the passion spill out of her, but instead of responding to her enthusiasm, he crossed his arms. "These ideas. They sound intriguing, Emily, but they could be misconstrued. You know how the board tends to react to change." Each objection felt like a direct hit, yet deep inside, she recognized it as a moment to pivot. "Dad, change doesn't mean abandoning what's important. It means evolving. Just like I've had to grow in my role here, our company can also evolve without losing its essence." His expression softened slightly, but he still clung to his discomfort. The tension between them felt almost palpable, as if the air itself thickened in anticipation of either conflict or resolution. "Is this truly about the assembly, or is it about proving you're more than just my daughter?" he asked, the challenge lingering in his tone. Emily took a breath, steeling herself for the confrontation that could either fracture or fortify their relationship. She had anticipated this question, knowing all too well that her motivations would be under scrutiny. "It's both," she admitted, her voice softening. "I want to validate my ideas, and I want to show you that my vision aligns with yours." For the first time, she saw a flicker of something in his eyes, a recognition of shared ambition tinged with hesitation. This was not merely about her relationship with him, it was a deeper struggle for legitimacy within the company she admired. Their legacy was intertwined, and as that realization washed over her, she leaned in, pushing aside the fear. "I believe in what we've built, Dad, but I also believe we must adapt to endure. I'm asking you to trust me not just as your daughter, but as a leader who can contribute meaningfully." His silence hung heavy, the shadows of his past decisions danced across his face. Emily felt her heart race, realization dawning that this confrontation was necessary to elevate them beyond their familiar roles. "Emily," he finally said, and she felt a shift in the air. But just as he opened his mouth again, a sharp knock on the door interrupted. The office manager's urgent voice cut through, asking if he had a moment for a critical issue regarding a client. Emily's stomach dropped. Not again, she thought, the uncertainty of timing snapping back into place. "Excuse me, Emily," he said, striding toward the door, but she stood rooted, her heart pounding. With his figure framed in the doorway, she sensed the urgency of this moment. The world outside could wait, but she couldn't afford to. Would she allow this moment to slip away again, or would she step into her power fully? The choice was hers, but the tension of the moment thrummed with potential. "Dad, please," she called after him, her voice laced with conviction. With her heart racing, she prepared for the impact of his decision. Would he step back, or would this time mark a new dawn for them both? The answer hung in the air like a promise, urging her to embrace a truth she desperately sought to reveal. The door to the conference room slammed shut behind Emily's father, leaving her in the silence of the polished space, suspended in uncertainty. Her heart raced. She had taken a leap forward, but was it enough? The air felt thicker now, charged with the unresolved tension that enveloped their relationship. Yet, there was no turning back. She knew she needed to seal this moment not with fear, but with determination. Drawing in a deep breath, she grounded herself in the sensations her heartbeat, the sound of muted footsteps in the corridor, the brightness of the office lights overhead. Emily opened her laptop and focused on the proposal, her commitment solidifying with each contemplated detail. She refused to let the moment slip away this time. She would not just be defined by her father's legacy but would carve out her own narrative. Minutes ticked by, but they were not wasted. She meticulously reviewed her outlines, bolstering her argument with testimonials she had gathered from colleagues over casual lunch conversations. She would present this not as a personal crusade but as a necessary evolution. It was not merely about the assembly, it was about inviting a culture of collaboration, one that could bridge the gap between legacy and innovation. Just as she finished her revisions, the door swung open again. This time, it was her father, his expression etched with urgency but also softened by the reflection of their previous conversation. "Emily, she didn't he let him finish." "Dad, I'm ready," she interjected, locking her gaze with his. "I know you're busy, but this opportunity is too important for me to delay any longer. Let us talk through the proposal again." She watched as he braced himself but also saw the flicker of intrigue spark in his eyes. "All right," he conceded, moving back to take a seat across from her. The tension in the room shifted. The potential gateway to understanding was wide open. Emily started again, her voice steady and crisp, recounting how the voices of every employee could lead to future successes. "There is so much unrecognized talent and insight within our ranks, people who see angles we overlook because they're in the trenches every day. This assembly can empower them and unleash potential we haven't even tapped into yet." She felt a swell of inspiration with every word, a harmonizing melody echoing from her heart to the thoughtful expression on her father's face that he listened intently, nodding slowly as she articulated her vision, drawing parallels between the company's achievements and areas for improvement. "Just like we've propelled this company forward through various economic challenges, this assembly could be the catalyst we need for cultural enrichment," she added, urgency dripping from her tone. After a moment that felt like both hours and seconds, he spoke, "You really believe this can work?" His voice was steady, tinged with a vulnerability that made her pulse quicken. "I do," she said confidently, eyes gleaming. "And I will champion it with every ounce of my being. I've realized that leadership isn't just about managing, it's about listening and creating a shared vision." Their gazes locked, a silent understanding dawning between them. She could sense him weighing her words against years of established practices, traditions that had built their legacy. Maybe, just maybe, today would mark a shift from the endless cycle of expectations to a new alliance forged through mutual respect. "Let us run a pilot," he said at last, the corner of his mouth inching upwards, revealing a hint of the approval she had craved. "But I want this assembly to illustrate results quickly, tangible outcomes in a 2-month timeframe." Emily felt a wave of relief wash over her, then an unmistakable thrill. "Absolutely. We'll create channels for feedback and hold regular sessions. I'll ensure it's driven by insights that lead to action." As clarity unfolded within the new agreement, she could see the end of one cycle and the budding of another, a personal and professional renaissance for both of them. Her vision, once just a whisper, had transformed into a powerful rallying cry. Outside pressures no longer shadowed her decisions. "I'm proud of you, Emily," he added, and she could feel the genuine acknowledgement deepen their bond. "Let us take this company to a new height together." In that moment, they both achieved a remarkable transformation, father and daughter, no longer defined by individual apprehensions but bound by shared aspirations. Emily left the conference room with an unshakable sense of accomplishment. It was not just a victory over fear but an inspiring leap toward a future rich in possibility. She had carved out her narrative, one that resonated beyond expectations. This achievement felt liberating. she was no longer just the CEO's daughter. She had proven herself as a voice worth listening to, a changemaker ready to redefine legacy. As she exited the office, a solid confidence radiated from her being, a feeling she never thought she would achieve. Emily's footsteps resonated purposefully as she navigated through the now familiar corridors, embraced by an air of transformative power, affirming her place in both the company and her own story. Now more than ever, she felt alive, recognized, and competent, bound to lead the charge for those unspoken voices in the workplace. This was it, she had finally conquered her inner battle and would continue to confront external challenges head-on. The horizon was wide open, reflecting hopes and ambitions she and her father would pursue together. Emily smiled, prepared to take the next step into a realm shaped by collaborative spirit and shared success. Now, if you've been moved by this incredible journey of overcoming challenges and finding one's true voice, take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help spread these powerful messages. Comment your reactions and theories about what inspired you the most from Emily's transformation. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support and connect with this community passionate about personal growth. Don't wait even one more second to share and lift others on their journey.